Hello and welcome to a series of conversations we're having as part of the Diverse Executive Coach Directory to celebrate South Asian Heritage Month. I am here today with wonderful Binta. Hi Binta, how are you?
Hi, Jenny. I'm fine. Thank you. Really nice to be having this conversation with you today.
Yes, and I'm loving the colour. You're very
Thank you.
vibrant today, so I'm looking for a vibrant conversation between us. Yes, yeah, so it's going to be good. So, I'd love to know first of all a little bit about your South Asian heritage, actually.
Mm.
Yeah, tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, my parents were born in India, and then to make a better life for themselves, my father's family moved to Uganda in East Africa. And then when my father got married, he moved his wife there. And yeah, it's a very traditional and it's a story of that a lot of Gujaratis have gone through in their lives. And then in the 70s, Idi Amin, asked all non-nationals to leave, and that's when they came to the UK, and they were
Mm.
pregnant with me at the time. So
Oh, wow.
yeah, so I really have deep admiration for them to be able to move from very quickly with very little,
Mm.
from a country where they felt settled and were doing really well and flourishing, and then come into something that felt so different and alien to them and having to start again.
Oh my goodness. And this so Indian and Ugandan roots, have they been something that you felt very connected to in your early life, or was it very much British culture?
It was being fully transparent. It was very challenging for me when I was younger. I grew up in Chigwell in Essex, where there wasn't any diversity, really, just none at all, apart from me, my brother, and my cousins. And I struggled with that, if I'm honest, in my schooling system. And I didn't want to be different. And so
Mm,
then I went, I think the pendulum can always go one way. Like when you want
mm,
to not feel like when you want to, feel the same as everyone. So I did. And then I kind of almost rejected my culture. And I
mm,
could see my parents had a lot of fear at the time
mm,
around the unknown, like even socializing with children from school. And
mm,
again, I felt that. And so I wanted to move as far away as I could from that fear. So, in a way, I really rejected my heritage when I was younger. And that came from, learning my mother tongue, in a way that I can speak it really conversationally. And then just doing everything that was against,
mm.
my heritage cultural norms and really adapting into that British culture is what I was looking for when I was younger. Yeah.
It's really interesting because I think there's both fear and expectation, isn't there? So I think when my hearing stories of people who leave, one country to come to another, they often want their children to fit in. They want you to assimilate, if I use that language, as much as possible. But then they also
Mhm.
want you to hold on to everything that probably you didn't really experience through them. And I think it's a challenge, isn't it? I think.
I think it is a challenge, and also because my parents didn't have very much confidence,
Mm,
and I just feel like they couldn't embrace these two worlds really
mm,
well. And so you stick with what feels familiar. And because then they couldn't socialize me in the way that I wanted to be socialized, it was quite challenging for me because I was both a sensitive and a very strong-headed
mm.
young girl. But so I think it was difficult for all of us when I was younger. Yeah.
Thank you. I think that experience and that story will resonate with many people
Mm.
who listen, who watch this, because uh, and you say it was difficult when you were younger, but some people, quite mature in life are still experiencing that actually, aren't
Yeah.
they? That navigation. Yeah. So what has your experience been like as someone with, as you said, your South Asian heritage? Do you have particular story or memory that sort of comes to mind that maybe epitomizes your experience as someone from your heritage?
I think, you know, one really, it's such a strange memory for it to stand out, but other than the people that were in my family, I didn't know any other Asian people growing up. And my
Mm,
friend, my brother and my cousins all had Asian friends, when they got to a certain age, and I never did. And I
mhm,
remember going to areas that were where the diversity was like where there was more Asian people than anything else. And I just
mm,
remember when I was there, like a change in my behavior and my personality. I felt like it was a coming home, and it's like my
ah,
nervous system could down regulate, but I
mm,
had no awareness of that, and I felt
yes.
like I belonged. And
Mm,
now, like through the eyes of an adult, I can see that that would have meant that I felt perhaps I didn't belong in my
mm,
day-to-day situations. But it was just there was like an opening in me, like a
mm,
permission to be all of me when I was in those areas. And it was just, yeah, I think it was harder than I realized when I was younger. I think I
mm,
have a lot of
mm,
compassion for the younger
mm,
version of me. I think it was
mm,
hard for all of us, but I do think my parents wanted to do the best for us. And of course they did. But I think
mm.
psychologically, like, I'm not sure that they knew how to navigate the differences in both of these different cultures.
Yeah, there's something when you were just talking and thinking about yourself as a coach
Mm.
and the stories that you must hear from clients about their sense. You talked about your nervous system. You may have been on guard. You may have been very aware of your difference and how you need to fit in on a daily basis. And I just wonder if that comes out in any of your coaching at all, if that experience from of yours has helped you with your clients.
Yeah, I think a lot of my work outside of coaching, and it's interesting, the clients that are attracted to working with me are also interested in working about this, but a lot of my education in the last few years has been around working with nervous systems and
Mm,
understanding the impact our past has had on our present. And
mm,
even though coaching is, very much forward looking, I think there is a piece, which is why I'm trained as a body worker as well, to
mm,
look at the impact our past has had and how that can stop us achieving the things that we want to, for being in patterns of behavior. And then when we can bring some consciousness to it, then things can begin to shift and we can integrate those parts that we've denied or repressed in the past. So I think
mm.
it comes in with permission when clients want to go there. But I also think I can work in quite a hybrid way. And a lot of my work really is focused on emotional regulation, on mindset.
Mm,
And, I'm a deeply spiritual person. I think as I got older, that's where my culture, my heritage really supported me, is becoming quite spiritual and learning about presence and mindfulness and different practices that spirituality offers. And again, I think the clients that want to work with me also want to learn a lot around work-life balance, around mental resilience. So I think I can draw on all of those experiences to really be able to support them.
mm. Yeah. So yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it? You talked about belonging,
Mm.
and the sense that sometimes you can feel very different and not feel that you belong, but not realize it. And it's only when you go into a different space that you can suddenly think, oh.
Yeah.
And perhaps sometimes that space is a coaching space.
Yeah.
Sometimes that is a space where you just, oh my goodness, I didn't realize this. You've helped me see
Mm.
my experience, and perhaps also you could be more attuned to seeing that from because of your past experience as well, potentially. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, really, really interesting to think about it. So, yeah, your heritage, did it impact you with regard to the choices you made? You're a coach now and a body worker. You've talked about that, but did and you've said, part of it is the spiritual side that your family, your heritage has enabled you to tap into. So that part, but early career choices, were they impacted, or did it all lead to where you are right now?
No, I think being Asian, it's not going to be a surprise to anyone listening to this. There was a certain course, certain careers that my parents would have loved me to have gotten into. But because, my education system didn't really support me blossoming, like again, I think coming from a minority whose parents were not well educated and weren't able to now help support me in my personal development and to navigate an education system that wasn't made for them. I think that wasn't ever going to be the path I was going to take, So there was a certain amount of, at the time, actually not rebellion. My education wouldn't have supported me going into a career like being a doctor or a lawyer. Yeah. And although that would have been something I think my parents would have loved me to have done.
Mm. I smiled as you said, not rebellion, because I thought, well, I think she has been rebellious.
Oh, I have.
Yeah, I could hear it. They weren't expecting you to be a certain way, and you were sort of breaking all the boundaries when you were
Yeah.
younger. I can see that rebellion, and
Yeah.
yeah, a celebration. We can celebrate that, can't we?
Yeah, and I think sometimes the rebellion comes because our family systems, there's a sense of loyalty and belonging. And when you don't have loyalty to the system, the heritage, the culture, then a way of like being with that guilt is rebellion. And I think you're becoming rebellious because you don't fit, and there's some guilt there around unmet expectations. So yeah, I do think and I've been doing a lot of work around that rebellion piece as well recently, just understanding what the younger version of me was, why she was playing out in the way that she was. And a lot of this is around identity and belonging.
Yes, yeah, I think so. And with that in mind, have your views on your heritage changed as you've matured? Because you're talking about the younger you, and I'm thinking now about
Yeah.
the more mature you. Yeah, and how important do you think it is to be proud of your heritage, do you think?
Yeah, I think it absolutely has changed. I've done a 180 now, and I love and I celebrate difference in life, in people, and in myself. And I think that brings such a uniqueness in all of us. And for me, I think the older I've got, the more I've educated myself, the more I haven't taken on societal and cultural beliefs, but I've also actively chosen or, yeah, have actually got my own belief system and my own set of values that has really helped me to embrace my culture. And I think it's so vital for us to really to own our cultural background because, as I say, I think there is that piece around values and identity and perspective which creates such a unique strength in all of us, and that's a real asset both professionally and in our personal lives. And I also think when you can own who you are, your self-confidence can really increase. And I think your sense of authenticity also builds. And I think both of those are real big contributors to resilience. So I
Yeah.
do think that, there's something to be said around that. And then also now it's interesting in trainings I'm in and clients that want to work with me, you know, I think the role model piece is a real thing. I think people want to have role models or work with coaches that look like them, that they can identify with their lived experience and their cultural background. So, this is something, it comes up repeatedly with, some of the clients that I work with. So I do think that role model piece is important, as is breaking stereotypes. I think that's a really, that's a role that we all play. And then again, like what we're bringing as people with diverse backgrounds is innovation, it's diversity, it's like an innovation of ideas and ways of thinking. And I think there's a strong place for that in the world, in workplaces, in our lives, in our family systems. Yeah, so I think it's important because I think with anything that we deny or repress, we push into the shadows, and then that creeps up onto us unconsciously. But when we can embrace who we are, then there's just a sense of wholeness there.
Mm. I love that. I love that. And that also just seeing someone who's doing it, who's been willing to step out of the norm, whatever that is, or own who they are, it can give others permission to do the same.
Yeah.
However, sometimes you might have to be the pioneer. Sometimes you have to be the first, don't you, as
As are
well?
you, Jenny.
Yes, well, as are many people. There has to be a lot of firsts.
Yeah.
So, you have mentioned a little bit about diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging in the workplace. But any final thoughts around, where we are? You talked about people valuing seeing someone who may have a similar lived experience to them. But yeah, any thoughts on your experience when you work with people in organizations, or the work you do in organizations, what you've seen, what you think can be better, anything
Mm.
around that?
Look, I was in the corporate world for decades, and I left PwC, one of the global professional services firms, in 2018. And I would say things have fundamentally changed. There's a lot more focus on it, but I still think we've got a way to go. I really do. And I see it, my clients now that are still in big corporates are still sharing experiences with me. And I think what I personally would like to see are cultural competencies that extend beyond the recruitment process. So they're part of your day-to-day or an organization's day-to-day operations, and they're part of the leadership, mindsets. And, I do think there's a gap there, and there's still a lot more work that can be done there. And then I do think there needs to be more and better programs of sponsorship and mentorship for people from diverse backgrounds. I again, this is something that comes up with my clients. I don't think there's enough support there. So that is something I really would like to see more investment in.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree more with everything you said there. Totally on the same page. So, if people wanted to get hold of you, what's the best way to get in contact with you?
They can visit my website, and it's bintapatelcoaching.com, and I'm on all platforms as Binta Patel Coaching. So yeah, you can find me on all channels by typing that in.
That's fabulous. And you can also find you on the Diverse Executive Coach Directory website too.
Indeed. Yes.
We're really delighted to have you. Thank you, for that insight into, a little bit about your South Asian heritage.
Mm.
I actually, um, think that our conversation was a bit about your heritage and a lot about who you are now. And yeah,
Yeah.
and how that's made you who you are today, which
Yeah.
was wonderful. And I really want you to own being a rebel.
Yeah.
I may call you that from now on.
I'll say
Rebel
Jenny told
Binta.
me to.
Yes. Well, probably you should rebel against it, actually. No, I'm not a rebel. But it's been wonderful to talk to you today. Thank you so
You
much,
too.
Binta.
Thank you, Jenny.